Someone left a comment asking if I've had any visitation dreams, like from family members that have passed or anything like that. So I thought we would talk about that today. If this interests you, stick around. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Wholeness Shift. My name is Veronica, and if this is your first time here, welcome. I teach people about easy, practical spirituality and intentional living, and we talk about all the existential stuff you could dream of. So if this interests you, stick around and hit the subscribe button. I wouldn't want you to miss out on anything good. So how do you know if you've had a visitation dream? How do you know if it was just a dream or if it was someone you love coming to you? Well, typically if that person has passed and then you have any kind of a dream about them where they're authentically present in your dream, they make eye contact with you or they speak to you, even if it's just a word or two, then that was a visitation. They're doing it as a means to touch base with you or to say, hey, I'm here and I'm okay, or to say hello, to bring some sort of a sense of love and comfort to you. So the question that usually goes right along with that is, well, my whoever, husband, mom, dad, brother, etc., best friend, whoever, this person died and I haven't had any dream, and I ask constantly, like, I need to see them. Well, the painful and sucky yet honest answer is that that's probably why you have not. You haven't healed to the point where you're peaceful enough to have contact. And I know that's hard to wrap your mind around, but if you're stuck in this low vibe, grief-stricken place about them, it may not be healthy for you to have that visitation, or it may not help you, or it may prolong your grief. Oh, thank you, Spomy. It might not be good for the person that passed either, to be drawn and connected to somebody who is grieving so hard for them. So for several reasons, if you're like super duper unhealed and grieving, you may not get a dream. It might come later when you're feeling a little better. So the answer to this question, I think it was Marie that sent it to me, is yes. I have had many of those, and I won't go into all of them because some of them, they're just my uncles that have passed and things like that. So sweet, meaningful dreams nonetheless. But there are 3 of them that really stand out to me, so I'm going to talk about those today. Number 1, you guys have heard me talk about my grandma before. I really love my grandma. She was in her 90s, and to say that my grandma was ready to go is an understatement. Like almost my entire adult life anyways, like she was ready to go. She was over it. She'd be like, ugh, done. I'm over it. And then when my uncles passed and stuff, she was so upset. She's like, I want so bad. I'm so done with this life. I have nothing left to contribute. And these young people, my uncles were not young, but she's like, these young people keep getting taken and I'm still sitting here. I'm actually getting mad at God. And she was not happy. Hi, Grandma. I love you. She just showed up. Anyway, she was ready to go. And I would be like, I don't want you to go. Fast forward to shortly before she passed. It was probably just a couple of months before she passed. And I was talking to her on the phone one day, and she said something about she doesn't plan to be here much longer anyways. And I'm like, I sure am going to miss you when you do go. And she's like, I know, honey, but don't miss me too hard. Just be happy for me. And I'm like, I'll be happy for you, but I'll be devastated for me. I know you're going to be happy and just fine. I'm extremely peaceful about you going, but I'm going to be devastated for me. And I said, do you think you can come visit me in my dreams? Let me know you're okay and just say hi. Let me see your pretty face. And she paused, and I could hear her. I could feel her energy almost shocked. Like she had never even considered that concept. And she was like, huh. Well, I'd sure like to try. And I'm like, okay, deal. You try when you cross over to come see me in my dream and say hello. So I can't remember how long it was after she passed, but it wasn't long, a couple of weeks. And I had a dream about her. She did it. So in the dream, I just remember, I don't know where I was working. I was working as a nurse in this dream. And there was a patient sitting in a chair. I was bent over this patient doing something, and I'm not sure what. And I remember looking over to the chair beside her, and it was my grandma. And I was like, "Hi, Grandma." And she just smiled and went, "Hi." And that's all she said. She didn't say anything else. But that was enough, right? So the second part was that there was another scene to this dream after that. Like it changed settings or whatever. And I don't have any idea what happened there or what was said there. I don't even know if there was anything said there. But all I know is that I woke up remembering so vividly this image of my grandma. In this dream, she was standing very close in front of me, like this, like the whole image, the whole scene in my mind was full of her face. And she looked elderly, yet she looked beautiful and young at the same time. She looked very healthy. But what I remember most vividly is that she had a tattoo on her forehead of this very, very old, faded, antique-looking yellow rose and like a vine, almost like she was wearing a crown. It looked like the tattoo was so old that it was almost completely faded. I have a picture of similar to what it looks like, but it was even more faded than this. I'll put the picture up here. But it was a big yellow rose in the middle of her forehead with a vine that went out, and she looked regal. She looked regal, and she was just staring at me, smiling, almost glowing, and she looked regal, and she had this yellow rose tattoo crown on her forehead. So later I looked up what that meant, and I'll put a screenshot here of what that meant. So cool. And then I remember just before I woke up, like when I was in twilight sleep, I got a big image of a dragonfly in my third eye. And as you know, dragonfly means spirit, but specifically to me, it means my spirit guides. That's their symbol. So I think that they were saying, "We got you, babe. You're welcome. You are loved." Number two is also about my grandma. And this dream was so cool. It's hard to even explain it or describe it, but I'm going to do my best. So basically in this dream, I was spending the day or the week, I don't even know how long it was in dream time, but I was spending time with my grandma. That emotion just reached up and got me. So in this dream, I was spending time with my grandma wherever we were. To me, what it reminded me of was Amsterdam. Honestly, it reminded me of Amsterdam. Like there were like a waterway and there was like little bridges that went over it. And like on one side was the little store we went to, and on the other side was her house. And I was spending the day with her. And in this dream, she was the young her. She couldn't have been more than mid-20s. I don't even think she could have been 30. She had to be in her 20s. And I was a little girl. I was probably, I don't know how old, 6, maybe. You know, we were doing errands, and she was, like when she took me into her house, and I think we were like in a laundry room doing laundry, but the floor, like it had this old-fashioned linoleum, and I'll see if I can find a picture of what it looks like. But it had this old-fashioned linoleum with flowers, this floral print in it. It was very pretty, but very distinctly from like back in the 40s. I want to say probably late 30s, early 40s, but I'm going to say the 40s. And this is a cool part too. So then she was showing me in the corner of this room was like her sewing area. And she showed me this very distinct looking yellow dress that she had just sewn. And all of the little details and the lines and the pattern, and very cool. And so anyways, you'll see why that's cool in a minute. So anyways, it was just me spending the day with my grandma and all of these little details about her life. Like, she had sewn this dress, she lived in this place, this is the way she looked. And then when I was leaving, I was going across the street over this little bridge, over this little walkway to a store over there. It was like a pharmacy or a drugstore or something. I was going with a bunch of kids and we were going to the store. And as I was walking across this little thing, I remembered, oh, my grandma, I want to say goodbye. And I turned around and looked at her, and she was standing on this large white porch with like these spindles. It looked like a wraparound porch of a big farmhouse or something is what it looked like. She was standing on this porch, staring down at me, watching me cross, and she was smiling. She was holding something like a laundry basket or something in one arm. And I turned around and I like held my hands up in a heart like this, and I was like, love you. And she smiled real big, and she's like, love you too. And she was holding something, so she couldn't do it, but she was trying to, like, she made half of a heart, and she was like like that. And she's like, oh, you know what I mean. And she turned around and laughed and went in the house. But it wasn't a dream. It was so real, and it was really her. I've no doubt in the world that was really her, and that was her true reaction. Precious. It was just a dream, some people would say, but to me, it was one of the most precious gifts I could ever get. Like, I feel like I really got to spend the day with my grandma, and not just spend the day, but like really hang out with her and see things from her life. And I got to really connect with her. It wasn't like the first dream where she was just sitting in the chair and said hi. I felt like I spent a week with her. So, fast forward a short time, I don't know how long. See, when my grandma was alive, she wrote in her diary every night of her life. Every night of her adult life, she wrote in her diary. And I always wondered, what's in those diaries? What's she writing about? And when she was getting older, and we knew it wouldn't be long, someone asked what she wanted done with her diaries, because she kept them all. She had a diary forever. She kept a diary since like the late 30s or early 40s. So there were like bins of them. And someone said, do you want us to respect your privacy? Do you want us to bury you with them? And my grandma was not a terribly sentimental person in many ways. And she was like, oh, throw them away. Who wants to read that boring old crap? And we were all like, we do. We're not getting rid of those. We're going to read every page, and you need to know that. She's like, well, I don't know why you guys would want to be so bored, but whatever. So there's bins of her diaries, and myself and my mom and my aunt, we've all taken turns sharing the bins and reading through her diaries. So during the 40s, when my grandpa he had just come back from World War II, and they were stationed, he was in the Army, and they were stationed in West Virginia, and she was away from family who was all here, and they were living in West Virginia, and they were dirt poor, and she was there by herself, and she didn't have anything else to do. And in her diary, she details how she spent so much time. She didn't own a nice dress, and she wanted to sew a dress, and she spent so much time sewing this yellow dress with all of the little pin tucks and all of the little details. And I was speechless, because I'm like, I saw that dress. I know exactly what it looks like, because she showed it to me in my dream. I know exactly what she's talking about. I know the shade of yellow it was, because I saw that dress in my dream. And I thought that was so cool. You know, the other cool thing about that, about the diaries, anyways, this is just an aside. The cool thing about the diary is that as soon as I got my hands on it, I went back to the one from the day I was born. That's so special. So I got to see what my grandma had to say about me on the day I was born and the first time she ever saw me. And then going through the years and seeing the things she wrote about me behind my back. How proud she was of me. How smart she thought I was. Or, just the little details that she didn't say to me, but to see that she thought those things was so special. Number 3. Growing up like I did in the household and the church community that I grew up in, very small church, and it was our life. I mean, we were at the church every Sunday morning for Sunday school, then Sunday morning service, then Sunday evening service at 6 o'clock, and then we'd be back for Thursday evening midweek service, and then Saturday night we had our youth gathering, and if there was anything else going on through the week at the church, we were there for that too. And very tight-knit. Our pastor was the world to us. And I was a very young woman who had never had a dad. I mean, I had a dad, but he was absent and trouble most of my life. I had a stepdad, but at that stage in my life, I mean, we're okay now, but at that stage in my life, I didn't want much to do with him because he was trouble, and I just didn't trust him and wasn't close with him. And so anytime I needed fatherly advice or someone to look up to as a father figure, I saw my pastor as that. He died. And that was horrible. He was the first person. I had known people that died before, but nobody I considered myself close to. And I wouldn't say I was close to him. I mean, that brings some kind of connotation of it being inappropriate or something. But we had a tight-knit church family. So I did consider myself close to him. And he was in his early 50s, and he had been complaining of heartburn all day, and the church secretary kept trying to convince him to go to the doctor, go get that checked out, something's wrong. And he's like, I'm just gonna go home and take a nap for a couple of hours, and if when I wake up I still don't feel good, I'll go to the emergency room, something's wrong. So he went home, he laid in the recliner in the living room, took a nap, and passed from a heart attack. His wife found him. So it was unexpected, it was shocking, it left us all reeling and grieving hard. And he was such a loved man as far as preachers in this area go, Cleveland and the western Cleveland area. Pastor Hughes was beloved, and at his funeral, they filled up the whole church parking lot. There's a Big Lots next door. They filled up the Big Lots parking lot. And then down this street, which is at least a mile long, the entire street was filled with cars. I mean, there were hundreds of people packed in this little church from front to back. It wasn't that little. It was a big church. There were hundreds of people packed in there, and people standing outside. They had to pipe the audio out. So anyways, this guy was beloved, and he was very special. But I was grieving. And I feel like that was a really long intro to get to this, so I apologize. So in this dream, I was in the back seat of a car on the passenger side, and it was parked in our church parking lot. And there was a man standing outside, which now I know was Spomy, my main guide. He was standing outside of the car, and I was in the car, and in my dream, I had the most guttural, grief-stricken sobs. I was crying in this dream. And I heard my pastor walk up to the car and ask the guy outside of it, "Is she in there?" And he's like, "Yeah, she's right there." And like I said, I was in the back seat behind the passenger seat. And the front passenger door opened, and my pastor gets in the car, and he's not sad at all. He's very happy, just joyful. He almost, just like in the dream about my grandma, he almost glowed. He looked so good, so happy, so healthy, buoyant. And he got in the passenger seat, but facing backwards like this, and he like peeked over the passenger seat headrest at me, and he was just smiling. He's like, "What's wrong?" And I tried to get out words through my sobs of, "I'm just so sad that you're gone. I can't believe you're gone." He had the cutest boyish grin, and he smiled so big, and he almost laughed, and he looked at me and he went, "Don't you know that I am just fine? I am so good. I'm so good. And you're going to be okay too. Don't you know I'm fine?" And I had this knowing come on, like almost a vision of a bike with training wheels, and now the training wheels were off. Like it was time for us in this church to learn to navigate this path without using him as a crutch type of thing. But the instant he was just like, "Don't you know I'm fine? I'm so good." It healed. This massive heart healing came on me. I know that I said earlier that often when you're deeply grieving, someone won't come to you. But I truly believe that they knew that giving me that gift and that visitation would help heal me. That I could feel it. And it did. It gave me massive healing, and I never grieved over him like that ever again. After that, I woke up knowing that he's okay and we're okay. I'm okay, and so is he. And it's all going to be fine. And so, yeah, that was a special one too. So those are 3 of my important visitation dreams. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below, because I would love to go on this journey with you. And if you haven't left a comment yet, like this video and leave a comment. I would appreciate your thoughts. All right, until next time.